My name is George Makaye.
My name is Dr. Alicia Makaye, and this is our victory story.
Life is just always mysterious and surprising. You never know what's around the next corner. You never know what's around the next corner.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia. I'm from Sherman, Texas. Grew up in very humble beginnings. My mother, she had me when she was a teenager, and I was the seventh child in the house of my grandmother. First grandchild, but the seventh child. So it was a lot of love. I grew up in a space where everybody was still very innocent, and it was very warm and welcome. Honestly, my family covered me as much as they possibly could growing up, and they also provided as much as they could. It wasn't a lot, but they did actually provide. But that still did not negate the fact that I was still going through everything that, you know, a young lady that would be in poverty would actually experience. I had a lot of the same similar experiences that a lot of people have shared throughout their particular lives. And it's no way to get around those experiences, because poverty sometimes breeds crime. It breeds a whole lot of different things that come with it. So it's not just always about not having enough money. It's about being in situations and circumstances that you find yourself in that are really beyond your control. But even out of all of that, I still have people that really believed in me. One of the stories that stand out to me is my second grade teacher. Her name was Miss White. She was an African-American teacher. And actually, when I started school, I was put in special ed. And in second grade, she actually went and advocated for me and said that, you know, this child is not a special ed child. She is really the opposite of that. She's actually really bright. And she went to all of the R meetings to actually get me pulled out of special ed. And my story now today is I have a PhD. So it actually worked out for me. And when she went up to be my advocate at a very young age, and of course I didn't have any idea of the impact that she would have had on my life starting at such a young age, but it led to something so much more greater. I've never, even after second grade, I've never seen Miss White ever again. If I could tell her, I would definitely share with her my story, because this is kind of probably a full 360 story for her as well. I knew I didn't have any other way out other than my education. The two options I knew that I was counting on was sports or either my education. So at a very young age, I started playing sports. I was playing basketball, and I just knew I was going to get a college scholarship playing basketball. But I ended up getting injured my 10th grade year in high school. And so when I got injured, at that particular time, I knew the only way out for me was education. So I kicked it up a notch when it came to school. I started really taking my schoolwork serious, and I had some wonderful community members. I had a young lady that I lived next door to. Her name was Miss Helen Williams, and her son was the high school counselor at the time. So she made sure that I had an advocate up at the high school that was always looking out for me. They noticed very quickly, she noticed quickly that I had a gift of being able to learn and to make good grades. And she quickly got me connected to the right people. So I ended up graduating with 5 academic scholarships after I had, finished high school. But I knew at that particular time, if I didn't get it right in school, I knew I didn't have a chance. That was the only thing I had going for me at that particular time, was making good grades. And I took what was in my hand and I just ran with it.
My name is George Makaye, and before I talk about my background and where I grew up, when you ask the question, who's George, it's really a difficult question, because everything about who we are, what defines us, a lot of the times they are labels. And so for me, when you ask who's George Makaye, I had to really go back to the kind of the very foundation of who I am. I was born and raised in Kenya, and my family, most of my family is still in Kenya, but I come from a family of 6 siblings, and I grew up. I was born in the rural parts of Kenya, a place called Kisii, and actually the first 5 years of my life, my grandmother raised me. And my mom was out, she had a job out of town. And so I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and also went to live with my uncles. And then when I turned around 5 or 6, my mom got married, and so I went to live with my mom and my stepfather. So, my stepfather worked was a social worker, worked for the government. When I was in my 6th grade, my father got an opportunity to come to the United States on an educational visa. And so, I was left in Kenya with my other siblings and my mom. And life was really hard at the time. My mom was barely making it. She was trying to fend for herself and raise 4 kids at the time. And so one of my mother's brother helped us quite a bit. And then when I was in my 7th grade, my uncle came to visit, and he saw the conditions that we were living in, and he looked at me and said, "You're really a smart kid," because he looked at my grades, and he said, "If you get straight A's in your exams during the next term, which is the next semester, I'll actually come, I'll take you, and you come and live with me." At the time, he was a single man, and he was relatively successful. So I worked really hard that semester, and I was able to get straight A's. And so he came, and I moved from home. I actually went to live with him. He was a bachelor at the time. And so that really changed the trajectory of my life, because he raised me a certain way. He was able to mentor into me, and I modeled the rest of my life, even starting a business, because I lived with him, because he was a business owner and he was relatively successful. Yeah, so fast forward to high school, and I got an opportunity to go to a high school in Kenya. And at the time, I wasn't really doing very well in school. And one of my very hard subjects was physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. Those were my hardest, and I was failing. And I remember one semester, I had an intern, a teacher, come out, and he approached me, and he took a special interest in me. And he said, "You're really a smart young man. I don't know why you're failing, but I'd like to help you and do some tutor classes after hours, so that we can see if you're able to turn around." And he started to mentor me, he started to speak to me, he started to really pour into me. And my grades over one semester turned in a major way. At that time, the classes we were staying in were about 40 kids, and I usually would turn out to be the bottom 10 kids with my grades. And when he started to mentor me, my interest and my passion for sciences actually increased tremendously. And after that, I started getting straight A's in physics, maths, and biology and chemistry. And they became my favorite subjects. Because I was doing so well, I was able to be admitted to an engineering school in Kenya. It was a university called Moi University. And so right there is when I went through the engineering program. It's a 5-year program. At the time, I was looking at majoring in heavy power, which is transmission, generation of power. But during that time, my university actually started to got a fund, and from England, and they were able to build a computer, a donation. It was actually a computer lab that were donated by Margaret Thatcher, and we built a computer. It was about 100 computers. And so during that time is when they introduced and opened the computer lab. And when I walked into that computer lab, I just fell in love with it. And at that time, I started to take a lot more time after hours to go, learn how to program, learn how to use the computers. And I changed my major from heavy power to light current. And that's when I started, looking into electronics, into computer support, into computer engineering. And luckily enough, during my 4th year, I landed an internship at an IT company in Nairobi, Kenya, called Diamond Systems. And that's when I really got into IT and started to pursue an IT career.
So I met George on a Friday night at happy hour. For the record, it was Club Phenomenon, and that was a phenomenal night.
One of my friends, I was actually at home, and one of my friends called me on my cell phone and said, hey, you want to go out? I was like, no, I don't know if I want to go out tonight. I'm kind of tired. I want to chill out and rest. And he insisted, so I gave in and decided to come along with him. And so we went to the club, and we started to hang out and dance. And then I remember standing at one of the booths, and I looked over, and I just saw this really beautiful woman, sitting by herself. And so I mustered enough courage and walked across the hall and went and actually approached her, and I asked her, can we dance?
And I actually turned him down. I said no.
And I had to think really quickly. I said, okay, what is the next thing I'm going to say? And so I asked her, I said, do you want to go upstairs? And because it was a 3 club in one, so they had a jazz room upstairs, and I asked her, would you like to go up and listen to jazz music? And she said yes. So we went upstairs and we started listening to jazz music, and there was just so much positive energy between us.
From there, since 2000, we've been inseparable. That's 19 years ago. We were actually flying to Las Vegas to go celebrate our 1-year marriage anniversary. We were excited. We made it 365 days. And George, he had a lot. I mean, he just is a natural entrepreneur. Had an idea. We're on the plane, and he said, "I think we could do this on our own." So it wasn't like this long, drawn out pre-conversation. We didn't even have a pen, so we had to ask the flight attendant to borrow a pen, and we had the napkin, the peanut napkin. We were kind of brainstorming names, but we wrote GXA on a napkin. And I said yes. I was in the business of saying yes a lot, but no, it wasn't like we settled on it. It wasn't like we turned and slept on it 100 times. Nope. He just kind of put it out there, and we put our ideas together and put our skills together and our talents together. He said he would walk away first from his job full time. And I said, okay. I told him, I said, well, before you walk away, we'll go down to just saving the bare minimum. I mean, saving as much as we can, but living off the bare minimum. I went down to clipping coupons all the time. And basically, I mean, our lunch budget at that time was $2.50. So this tells you this was back in the day, because you can barely get anything for $2.50 now. But it was $2.50. That was if you ate out at lunchtime, you couldn't go over $2.50. And so literally we saved up 1 year of income, because we lived off of one income for the entire year, which we lived off of his income, and we saved my entire income. That's what sparked it. I mean, we were so focused that we were going to do it. Like, we just made up in our mind we were going to do it. Nobody's going to talk us out of it. And we didn't even consult anybody. It's not like we had all these business advisors around us and said the economy is looking good and the weather outside is nice. We didn't have any of that.
We had a passion. Beyond the business, we had a passion for giving back. And so we had a big why. We have a big reason why we wanted to take all the risk and actually start a business, something neither of us had done before, right? And so, I know one of the questions you were asking was why we wanted to do that. It's just really because we wanted to help. We wanted to serve something bigger than us. We wanted to be able to give into philanthropy, do more mission work, be able to go when God says go. And that big why is what allowed us to overcome our fears and go ahead and just jump in, both of us, and just say, you know what, let's try it. We're still young. We still don't have any kids. We live in an apartment. Our backup plan was that we were going to live with Alicia's mom in Sherman, right? And so that was enough motivation for me to actually want to make sure that we succeed, right?
I don't think my mom knows that she was my mom and dad.
Was the backup plan.
They didn't know they were the backup plan, but they were part of the strategic plan, just in case if everything failed. So really, when we first started, it was just George and I, and we started. Our first office space was in the house, and it was we had already bought our first house. He was basically running around everywhere, and I was upstairs in one of the bedrooms, had a computer, started putting together a handbook, and then actually one of the clients let him borrow a cubicle space.
They gave me a cube to work from at the office, and Alicia was stationed at home. She was working from the house. So at the time, Alicia was pregnant with her first son, her first child, Zach. BBG was about to move. They were going to move offices, and I was basically, being a one-man shop, I was in charge of making sure the whole move worked smoothly. I get this call from Alicia at about 6 a.m. I'm in downtown Dallas. We were living in Plano at the time, and she said, my water just broke. And I said, what do you mean? She said, my water just broke. And so I went straight to the hospital. And I was at the hospital, and I had my laptop trying to do support and help with the move while helping Alicia with labor.
When that happened, so George was at a cubicle. Our first employee was at another client site. And at that time, George had picked up another client. And, he had started picking up clients. And he said, I'm just too worn out. I got to get some help because this is becoming very overwhelming for me. And then from there, we had to hire someone else to kind of help George out. And so literally he said, I got to find office space. So I went and started looking for office space. I landed in Richardson, Texas. Our first office space was about 350 square feet. And it was me, George, Ramiz, and another guy named Victor. And George and Ramiz and Victor, they were always coming and going. And so I actually was at the front desk, and I was working on my PhD. So I would run down to college, go to my classes, and then come back to the office during the daytime. So I was going back and forth because the office was right down the street from the university in Richardson. So I would run back and forth, doing all of the administrative work behind the scenes for the actual business itself. And then from there, it just really took off. And when you start a business from the very beginning, you are everything. Like, there's no jobs that really are off the table. I know George, at one time, he was talking about me doing some IT support. Fast forward that one office space, we grew out of that one, ended up into two. So since we've started, well over 10 years ago, we've moved 5 times. Went from 350 square feet to now we're in about 5,000 square feet. Now we just purchased a building, and that's 20,000 square feet. So this story is still growing. We still have really the same model that we had from the very beginning. We stick to our why. I'm very committed to giving back to the community, to going and volunteering my time. We take that as a personal charge. For us, we've stayed very steadfast to our why. Why did we actually do this? And so I get up every single day thinking that somebody out here in this world needs me to stay the course and needs us to show them that they can actually do it. But a lot of people don't know that behind the scenes, the type of sacrifices that you have to make in order to really pull off being a business owner and to being an entrepreneur. That's a huge sacrifice. When you're looking at moving into entrepreneurship and trying to own a business. And, the question would be, are you really ready? You can't take time off. There was no time off. Like, what are we going to take time off to do? The takeaway would be, you actually can work together as a couple and have a successful marriage. And actually make it. We're still married. We're 17 years in. You can actually come from nothing. Both of us came from very humble beginnings. We didn't let from where we came from predict where we were actually going. Whatever cards we were dealt with, we turned it into, this beautiful story, of love, hard work, and also knowing and remembering that I don't care how much education you get, how many certifications you get, you got to put in the grind. You got to put in the grit. I mean, it's work. It's late hours. It's hard work. This has been a story that's been in the making for 19 years. And so I know we have the lights, camera, and action on us right now, but the behind the scenes work that went into where we're at now, you have to serve your time. You got to put in your time, whether it be starting off as cleaning the floors or whether it be starting off as cutting hair. George was a waiter when he came to America. My first job was at McDonald's, and my McDonald's boss actually works in the same building that I'm actually in right to this very day. So, and that was at 16. So we had to put in our time.
So the other thing I think that I'd like people to take is a lot of the times people desire, they see success and they want it for, generally for material reasons, right? I think the why, always understanding that your why for starting a business is more important than the what and the how, right? Because if your why is not important enough, if it's not big enough, you're not going to fight through and be resilient through the hard times. And so our why was, and it was coming from the heart, we wanted to serve, we wanted to give back, we wanted to do more, and that's still the same why even up to now.
Right.
Ultimately, regardless if the business is a small business or we grow to a much larger business, the same reason why we started the business, the same reason that gets us up every morning and makes us come to the office is we want to serve our clients. We want to give them the best IT support, in the market. We also want to give back, the profits and resources of everything of the things that we make, give back into the community locally. Like Alicia says, she gives back here tremendously in the local community. I do a lot of philanthropy internationally, and that's the passion behind why we work so hard, right? And so we're able to overcome, all the difficult times and all the potholes and all the hard times that come, and it's going to come. And then the other thing is, the second one is just having a bias to action, right? And there are a lot of people who dream, but they're not really willing to put in the work. And entrepreneurship is a lot of work. There's a lot of risk. There's a lot of hard work and sacrifices. And you gotta be able to take action. And so you take one step at a time. Take one step at a time and keep moving. And don't worry about the big picture. Set your goals, but don't worry about the picture. Just worry about the next step. And as you take each step, over time, you're gonna really be able to achieve what you desire to achieve.